Liam Lawson out, Yuki Tsunoda in at Red Bull. Very, very big news happening this week with reports emerging that Red Bull have made the very big call to bin Liam Lawson after just two races, after failing to score points after, well, effectively three races with the sprint, and are said to be backing Yuki Tsunoda as soon as the Japanese Grand Prix, with the location of the Grand Prix probably being quite pivotal in this decision. Not an easy decision for Christian Horner to have made, and it was always going to be an interesting season ahead because it was quite controversial when Liam Lawson was, well, he replaced Daniel Ricciardo to begin with, and then, was given that Red Bull drive ahead of Yuki Tsunoda, despite, for example, apparently Honda being willing to put in $10 million to give Yuki Tsunoda the drive. The fact that Yuki Tsunoda's got far more Formula One experience, but what little that Liam Lawson showed in that that Red Bull Racing last year was enough to convince Christian Horner to give him the job. But things have just not gone to plan at all. With Lawson currently without any points in the Drivers' Championship. And it's an interesting situation you still stand yourself because once again, you're looking at a World Championship defeat if you can't get scoring points, because that's what we saw last year. Just the Red Bull second driver not contributing, Max Verstappen having to, bring through all the different the points that they brought in were basically effectively all from him. And you can't win a Constructors' Championship with one driver, even if that driver is Max Verstappen. So in terms of Liam Lawson, well, he was never short of confidence, was Liam Lawson, in terms of backing his ability and, obviously very controversially, especially with Drive to Survive, basically coming out and saying that he's not here to make friends, he's here to win. And he's not been doing that. And that's a big sort of red flag with regards to his ability, and because he's not backed it up. And in that, lots of people sort of calling him quite arrogant, the likes of that. I think it's confidence. I think all Formula One drivers are confident, but you come on board and you sort of say that, and then you spin out during, the testing, and you will look at it as qualifying in a bit, but you don't qualify anything near sort of the top 10. You don't score any points. And unfortunately, Red Bull, I think last year probably paid the price by not making a decision earlier and trying to maybe change things. But at the same time, are we now looking at a second car for Red Bull that is just completely undrivable? We've seen so many drivers struggle in this car, the likes of Alex Albon, Pierre Gasly, Daniel Ricciardo, Checo Perez, and now Liam Lawson. And it's a really good driver lineup when you look at it, and yet they've all been unable to get the best. So unfortunately, it could be farewell for Liam Lawson almost as soon as he arrived going out. And we have to wait for official confirmation. But the reality is that they've got to make some big call, and whether they back him or whether they bin him, a call had to be made, and it sounds like they're going to go with the latter. So it's just basically first been dropped by two publications, and very reliable ones, Die Telegraph and Die Limburger, reporting that they have made the decision that there was apparently a meeting in Dubai with the Red Bull sort of chiefs. ESPN also reporting the fact that they've made that decision. Now, in terms of sort of a summary of events, obviously over the weekend we had a really poor showing from Liam Lawson where he didn't score any points. He started number 20 in the pit lane for the actual race, buckled in the sprint, and he's not at any stage look anything near a Red Bull driver. And as a result, they had an emergency meeting, and this is where the likes of Pierre Wash, Helmut Marko, and Christian Horner were all involved after having quite a heated argument in the paddock itself. After the drive, Liam Lawson admitted that he was under a lot of pressure and that he was really struggling in the Red Bull. And he said that, I don't have time to test the car and get used to it, but we are in the season already, and in his race, we are losing. And he basically said he's just not driving fast enough. But also, it's what was quite pivotal was his radio at the end of the Grand Prix, where he said he's trying everything he can. He said he just can't control the car. He feels like he's just not getting the pace out of it. Now, this begs the big question, to talk about the fact that, I don't have time to test the car, get used to the car. Is this car undrivable? Are we talking about a team where, because they gravitate so much towards Max Verstappen, that the other sort of drivers almost are, it's mission impossible? Because Alex Albon was on a podcast speaking about the fact, and he basically said that Max Verstappen has an incredibly unique driving style, that he, loves to get a lot out of the front of the car. And, he talks about, makes the comparison of a mouse and sensitivity. And he says that Max Verstappen drives with the highest possible sensitivity setting, and that other drivers just don't. And as a result, you gravitate towards developing a car that suits your main driver. And now we're seeing secondary drivers suffer as a result. So this is the start that Liam Lawson's had. He was P8 at this in terms of where he started. This was his grid. P18 in Australia, P20 in the China and P20. That's where he started. So that was his qualifier, and you can't have a Red Bull with his best qualifying standards of P18, and I think his best finish so far has been 16th. It's not good enough really from that perspective. But it also shows you the massive gap between them, because what we sort of start to learn more and more when it comes to Formula One drivers is obviously that the difference between the different drivers. There are obviously big differences, but the car makes everything, and this is the only team really where there's just such a discrepancy, and there's been such a discrepancy across many different years. This is not a isolated incident. It's this has been a case of the Red Bull driver, secondary driver, not being able to keep up with Max for several seasons. And you look at other teams, and the McLarens are pretty close in terms of the drivers. The Ferraris, even last year, were very close between the drivers. Your Haas's, your Salvas, stuff like that. It's your grids generally look pretty similar with regards to where the different cars are. We saw that Alpine 2 and 3 last year, and the fact that drivers in the same sort of cars were sort of getting similar. And now we've got this massive discrepancy, which begs the question: is it the car or is it the driver? Now the reality is, Red Bull currently sit in third place on the Constructors' Championship, of all 35 points coming from Max Verstappen. So Liam Lawson has not contributed a single point to the team standings, which is a bit of a disaster. This, however, shows you just how bad it's been across, having two different teammates. Since Qatar in 2024, Max Verstappen has scored all 70 points for Red Bull, with Perez scoring none towards the end of his career and Lawson to the date not having scored any either. So this becomes the problem, the fact that they're so adamant they need to try and find somewhere to contribute, and yet the big question is the car, drivable for non-Max Verstappen drivers to be able to get those points. This, I think, was quite an interesting one, and showed you maybe, initially what the Red Bull PR department was trying to push out. So this is the Drivers' Championship sort of points on the Red Bull website. Very importantly, this is the Red Bull website, because on the official website, Liam Lawson is about on 17 due to different driving position, finishing positions, and the likes of that. The points not really making a difference. However, on the Red Bull website, he is listed in 20th, which is not actually where he finished, but on 20 points. And is there nearly an indication maybe over the weekend that they were trying to basically continue to push this narrative to create a scapegoat in Liam Lawson, in looking at the fact that maybe the driver's the issue and stuff like that. What is interesting now is that Yuki Tsunoda, for example, we talk about a high changeover of teammates, the likes of that, but Yuki Tsunoda, these are the teammates he's had. He's had a total of 5 different teammates in the last 4 years, and potentially have teammate number 6 if he does take this drive. He has driven, obviously, been a teammate with Ricciardo, with Alex, with Liam Lawson, obviously had John now, Gasly, the likes of that. So the big thing for him is that, and this is what he basically came out and said, he is ready to drive the Red Bull seat. He's been desperate for it for years. And when asked about, the idea of becoming Max Verstappen's teammate, he said, "I'm ready to fight that monster." And I think what's quite an apt quote is the fact that I think he's ready to fight the monster that is the car itself. So we're still waiting for an expected official announcement, but obviously things have to start happening. You've got the Japanese Grand Prix next week. You've got to start getting all the logistics ready. You've got to get all the promotional material. You've got to get you got to let the race know. You've got to get sort of your press conference and press on the wrap. So we do expect to get an official announcement within the next few days. So keep an eye out for that itself. But we want to know, what do you think? Was it harsh? Can Yuki Tsunoda do better? Was it the right decision for Red Bull to sack or even bring Liam Lawson in to begin with? What do you think? Down in the comments below, let us know.